This is PD the Porg, and you're watching Rich Boy J.
Hello boyos, Rich Boy J here back with another video, and this is going to be episode 32 of Your Questions Answered. If you're not familiar with it, Your Questions Answered is a Q&A series that I do here on this channel. If you want to see your questions answered in one of these videos, leave in the comment section below. Make sure it's Lego Star Wars or Lego Star Wars related, and then check back next week to see if you made the cut. Very special thanks to Empire Brick Studios for making that intro. I thought it was quite hilarious, so thank you so much for that. That just goes to show you guys, you don't have to, put in hours and hours to do a stop motion intro or anything like that. Just anything funny and creative like that, I'd be more than happy to put at the front of these videos. So once again, I urge you, send me those custom intros. I'll love to put those at the front of these videos. But without further ado, let's jump right into the questions. First question comes from Alyssa Page 484, and they say, do you think that Lego should update the battle droids? Absolutely. I actually talked about this in one of my earlier videos. I think it was titled top 5 minifigs that need updates, and I mentioned this battle droid specifically because yes, the battle droid is so long overdue for an update. There's no way that the design from 1999 should be around today, 20 years later. There are a couple things I feel that they can do to really improve it. Well, actually 3. The first thing is, can we get some face printing? I mean, the face is so bare. If they just printed the eyes in, I think that would actually go a long way. Number 2, give them a custom backpack mold piece. I remember back in the day, they used to give them the 1x2 plate with the antenna on the back, and I thought that was a pretty good solution for it at the time, but it seems like today they've abandoned the backpack altogether. So I think it'd be really cool in 2019 to see some sort of update to the backpack. Just give us a custom mold altogether. It's a rather unique looking thing, especially with the 2 thin antennas at the top, so just give us a unique backpack. I think that would actually make the battle droids look so much more detailed. And then finally, we need a complete update to the legs and arms. I think that the legs specifically need an update. They don't necessarily need to be articulated. I can understand why you maybe wouldn't want to do that just because of how thin they are. You wouldn't want to risk them being easily breakable or fragile in other words. But what you could do is just give us the legs in multiple orientations. You can keep the standing leg position, but also throw in some running leg positions as well, just to give us a little bit of variety when it comes to these battle droids. So every time we build a mock with them or display them, they don't necessarily just have to be standing there straight up with the blaster sticking straight out. As for the arms, the kind of same thing applies, right? Like the current arms aren't bad for what they are, but we just need a little bit more variety. We need something along the lines that allows the battle droid to be able to hold the gun kind of like this, holstered, not necessarily just straight down or straight up. I think a little more variety like that can go a really long way in making those battle droid figures look so much cooler. So you got all the answers right there, Lego. Make it happen. Next question comes from Chris Wright, and he says, do you know why every Y-Wing in the Rebellion didn't have most of the yellow and white plating on the top? So this is one of those things that didn't really become a problem until after the fact. In the original trilogy, I would have been perfectly willing to accept that that was just the way that Y-Wings looked. They just had a lot of exposed greebling along the engines in that main body section, but then the Clone Wars came along and they needed kind of to have a precursor to the Y-Wing, so then they created the lore of that, the plating on the initial Clone Wars Y-Wing, which is removed for the Rebellion, which, I mean, if you look at the original Y-Wing, I think that it doesn't look like an unfinished ship, I feel like that ship could have existed just like that and it wouldn't have been very problematic. We have plenty of ships in Star Wars with exposed greebling and things like that, so I didn't really find that to be that big of an issue. But the fact that the Clone Wars set up their version of the Y-Wing and then raises the question, why is none of the plating on any of the newer Y-Wings, is there not at least one of them that survived with their plating? Is it like that fragile of a thing? I don't know. But I mean, I try to think of it as not really that big of a deal, because it really isn't. But it's annoying to think that this wasn't really a problem until the Clone Wars made it a problem. I'm sure there's some in-universe reason why the armor was there initially and why it was not there. For example, I don't know, maybe it was just really heavy and they wanted the Y-Wings to be lighter, which, I mean, would beg the question, would that plating make that much of a difference in a universe like Star Wars with all the technological advances that they have? But I don't know, man. It's just as perplexing to me as it is for you. Next question comes from Dude Brick, and he says, my boy Jay, what's one scene in all of Star Wars that you love so much? Also, some more Brick films, bro. Trust me, I would love to be making more Star Brick films. I'm trying to figure out a way where I can work it into my schedule. I don't really see it being a thing that I can do consistently on my channel anytime soon, but trust me, I'm trying to figure out a way, so make sure you stay tuned for that. As for a scene that I just love in all of Star Wars, there are a couple that when you ask this question that immediately came to my mind. The first one is actually from The Last Jedi, and it's the scene with Yoda and Luke. I just love this scene so much. Like, words cannot describe how much I love this scene between those two characters. I think it's so cool how we've been able to see Yoda and Luke communicate at 3 drastically different stages in Luke's life. It of course started off with him when he was, trying to figure out if he wants to become a Jedi, looking to be trained, not really knowing much about the Force, and being very young and naive essentially. And you go to episode 6 where he comes back and he's like ready to complete his training. So most of the things about being a Jedi he's learned, but he's still trying to figure out those last few steps to really make it. And then Yoda tells him, it's all going to boil down to you confronting your father. And then finally we go to The Last Jedi and we see Yoda and Luke having, kind of a different conversation, but still like a lot of the same conversations that they had before, talking about how Luke's always still looking out, never really focusing in on the moment. And I don't know, I just love that dynamic so much. That has to be one of the most heartwarming scenes in all of Star Wars. And I think like for that scene alone, I don't know how people can hate The Last Jedi. That scene is just, it's just so powerful. It's so moving. The message that Yoda tells is something that I feel anyone can relate to. So that scene is definitely like top 3 Star Wars scenes of all time in my view. The other scene that I really love is in episode 4, just Luke looking out into the twin suns, the musical cues, the visuals, it's all just so perfect. And I feel like that scene alone tells you all you need to know about Luke Skywalker and kind of where he is in his life at that point. And then it makes it even more meaningful when we see like where he ends up, going to join the rebellion, becoming a really important key piece of the galaxy, and ultimately being the difference between the Empire carrying on and the Empire stopping for at least, a few decades. So I really do like those 2 scenes in Star Wars. Let me know in the comment section, what are some of your guys' favorite scenes in all of Star Wars? I would love to know. Next question comes from Sam Hart. He says, hello, I'm new to the channel, so sorry if you could ask this a lot, but I've been trying to do more Star Wars mocks, and I was wondering, do you ever use programs like LDD, or do you always build physically? Thanks, love your videos. Thank you so much for the kind words, Sam Hart. And this was, I thought, a good question to give people who are probably new to the channel and haven't been around to see me build any like big ship builds recently. But in a nutshell, I build all of my big vehicle builds in LDD. It makes it really easy for me because 1, I don't have to look for parts in my collection to build. I can literally just jump right in and design what I want to design. 2, it allows me to build things and not have to commit too much to the build. Like I can imagine getting like really a long ways through on a design and then decided I don't like it. If it's in physical bricks, I have to like literally take the entire thing apart to make those parts useful again. In LED, I just delete it and then move on. I don't have to be afraid about building something that I'm not going to like. I have a little bit more, I guess, freedom in just being like, oh, I just built this on a whim. If it doesn't look good, it's whatever. I haven't really lost too much time. I'm not going to have a lot of parts devoted into this thing. And then the third thing is just because like whenever you finish the build, LDD will not only generate a building guide, which is just key to me. Like without that, I don't know what I would do. But then 2, it also lets you like get a parts list. So you literally just end up buying exactly what you need. You don't have to kind of like build and then order parts that you think you might need on the off chance that you actually do end up using them and spend more money than you have to. I literally just built the entire model in LDD. At the very end, get the parts list, buy what I need to buy, and that's it. No extra parts needed. So for those 3 reasons, I think LDD is just a great tool for anyone to use when designing vehicles like that. When it comes to most other things like a big landscape or buildings, I think those are the types of things that are really just more fun to build in real bricks because you don't need to plan as much of it. You can just really have an idea in your head and see kind of how it plays out, especially since it's so large scale. A lot of times, like when it comes to landscapes and stuff like that, it depends on how a lot of the colors match up together, and just having like an LDD file or a computer image of it won't really give you a full understanding of just how decent it'll look until you build it in real bricks. A great example is the pattern that I used for the crate mock. That was something that I actually did kind of come up with in LDD, but I wasn't fully sold on it until I could actually build it in real bricks. And then at that point, I was willing to fully commit to it. Like the design was exactly the same being built in real bricks and being built in LDD, but there was no way for me to know how much the pattern would pop in real life until I built it in real bricks. So certain things I say absolutely build in real life, but then when it comes to like the ships and things that, the details like really matter, go with LDD. It'll save you tons of money down the line. Next question comes from the Jawa Lord. He says, what Lego Rebel ship variant is the best in your opinion? I personally love the U-Wing. This is a great question because you guys can see I have a little shelf right there of a lot of various Rebel ships. That's like my Rebel shelf. And then right above it is also kind of my Rebel shelf. I have 2 Rebel shelves. But I feel like my ships are increasingly becoming more custom models. And it's not to say that Lego models are bad, because the Lego models are getting actually pretty good, but the custom models out there are just so brilliant. Thank you so much, Enthard, for that. But when it comes to the actual Lego models, which one do I actually prefer the most? I might actually have to agree with you and go with the U-Wing. That was easily my favorite set out of the Rogue One wave of sets, and I just love that thing so much. It was so fun to build. I love the idea of the ship so much. I think that's one of the coolest additions to like I think that it's one of the coolest additions to the original trilogy that we've gotten in this like new era of Star Wars, the Disney era. I mean, the U-Wing, I mean, it's practical. It's such a cool ship. And I don't know, I just love the U-Wing so much. And Lego actually did a really good job at building theirs. The only big gripe that I have on it is the fact that it does not have space for 2 pilots, but you know how that goes with Lego. The AT-ST has the same issue as well. Next question comes from Claude Gaming, and he says, which game do you prefer, Lego Batman 2 or Lego The Force Awakens? I mentioned, I think last week, that someone asked me about The Force Awakens and if I preferred the minifigures talking or not talking like they did in the original Lego Star Wars games. And I brought up how I played Lego Batman 2, and they obviously talked in that, so I thought, oh, this would be so cool to see in Star Wars. And then when it happened, the execution, I just feel, wasn't that great, so I ultimately preferred them not talking. Now, when it comes to Lego Batman 2 and Lego Force Awakens, this may surprise a lot of people, but I think I actually enjoyed playing Lego Batman 2 quite a bit more. The first thing is I played Lego Batman 2 with my little brother. We beat the entire game together, so that was a cool bonding moment for us. So I think I have a little bit more emotional attachment because So I think I have a little bit more of an emotional attachment to it because of that reason. I just have, fond memories of completing puzzles with my little brother. As for the Force Awakens game, that was one that I really had high hopes going into. You guys know how big of a role that the Lego Star Wars video games played in my development as a fan of Lego Star Wars. So going into that game, I was really hoping that like all those original feelings were rekindled. And I mean, the game is obviously, much more updated. There's so much more you can do, but it didn't really hit me the way I expected it to. So I don't know. I came away from that game rather disappointed. So I probably got to go with Lego Batman 2. I mean, if you compare the games side to side, Lego Force Awakens probably is a better game. Like there was just tons of DLC for that game. And it was a newer game, so, there's probably new features and stuff like that. But when it comes to just, like, which one I preferred playing, I gotta go with Lego Batman 2. Next question comes from Lego Guy 1111266. What is your favorite lightsaber fight from Rebels? That's a pretty good question. When I started thinking about it, I really couldn't remember a lot of the lightsaber fights, but there was definitely one that stuck out to me, and that was between Anakin and Ahsoka. I mean, when it comes to the actual combat, it wasn't, the most beautiful or nicely choreographed fight. It wasn't bad. It just wasn't really an extensive fight per se, or probably even the best fighting type of lightsaber battle in the series, but just the dynamic between the two characters. This is something that we've been wanting to see for years and years. Ahsoka finally confronting Anakin as a dark side user, as Darth Vader, and it was so powerful, especially when his mask gets cut and she can see his actual eye. It was just such a powerful moment, and I love everything about that until you had the fake ending where it was ambiguous as to what happened to Ahsoka. And I mean, I won't go into a Dave Filoni rant here or anything, but I would have preferred if they were conclusive with her. I think that would have been a great end for her character. Darth Vader striking down his one apprentice that he had at one point. I don't know, just really would have sold the idea of just how far along Anakin had gone down the dark side. And I know, for all intents and purposes, that's essentially what happened, because he did try to kill her. But the fact that he didn't do it, I don't know, it would have been a really powerful moment there. But also it would have made his redemption in the end in episode 6 that much more powerful. But Dave Filoni, for some reason, cannot let go of his characters. All of them have to have ambiguous endings. So, I mean, I guess I just got to get used to it at this point. And the final question is going to come from Infernal Bricks. He says, what do you think of a Porg battle pack? That's a great question. I would love it. Porgs are not the easiest thing to get right now. I know they come in the smaller Octo set, which is nice because initially they literally just came in the Falcon. But now that they're in a couple more sets, the Octo set and of course the big Porg set is cool. But I want Porgs in the masses. I want Porgs in the hundreds and thousands. Give us a Porg battle pack. Can you imagine $15 battle pack comes with 10 or 15 porgs. Can you imagine the types of armies of porgs that we can build? Like, oh my god, I get excited just thinking about it. But anyways, that's going to finish up the video today, guys. I hope that you enjoyed it. Like I always say, if you want to see your questions answered in one of these videos, leave it in the comment section below. Make sure it is Lego, Star Wars, or Lego Star Wars related, and then check back next week to see if you make the cut. Also, I'm always taking intros from you guys, so send those over. I would love to put them at the front of these videos, make it creative, make it funny. I don't care, just make it appropriate, and we'll see if that also makes the cut. Like I also always say, if you like what I do, guys, make sure you go ahead and smash that subscribe button. I would certainly appreciate it for you to do that, and then also support the video too by giving it a like. I'll see you guys very soon.